Hello and welcome to the Console Chronicles podcast. Today I am here with my best friend and fellow gamer, Nate Spoon, and we're going to talk about Christmas video games. The theme of this doesn't really have to be games that take place on Christmas, even though there are certainly some games on here that take place during Christmas, but more or less feelings that we get that invoke that Christmas feeling, like perhaps we unwrapped a game on Christmas and we have a memory of this game, right?
Yeah, either the nostalgic hitting you or it's just a snowy game that gives you that vibe.
Right. So with that, Nate, tell us, what is one of your first memories with video games at Christmas? What have you got?
I think the first one for me that really pops into mind is Assassin's Creed 3, because I just begged my whole family forever to get it for me. Being a history nerd and seeing it take place during the American Revolution, I had to have it.
Right.
And my grandpa finally gave in and said, you know what? I'll buy it. It's $60, but I'll buy it. And he saw the box. He thought it was cool. You know, Washington's army fighting the British, that kind of stuff. And what he didn't realize he was in for was me playing as Haytham for 2 hours trying to figure out how the lock-picking mechanics work.
2012 was a great year for video games, in my opinion. One of the last great years. AC3 was definitely on my list as well. That's when I first started getting into the Assassin's Creed series.
For sure.
I got into Brotherhood through my want to play the multiplayer game, and then by that point, Revelations was already out. So I think by that point, I only had literally played Brotherhood, and it was Kobe who convinced me to get Assassin's Creed 3. And Assassin's Creed 3, not really a Christmas-themed game. There's maybe 2 seasons in the game. There's probably spring, and then there's winter for sure. So there is a bit of a wintry vibe that you can get, especially during some of the missions.
Yeah, I was going to say, the nostalgia just from having it from my childhood isn't the only thing that makes me associate it with Christmas. Parts of the game where you're walking through Boston during winter, you just can't help but feel immersed.
Yeah. And it takes place in America too. Not that, other countries don't celebrate Christmas, but it makes it that much more relatable, I guess.
It sells you the image.
Right.
Boston's familiar.
But speaking of childhood games that we have in common, the year we graduated, 2018, was a new feeling. We're a little more independent, and I went and I started house sitting for people, and I asked them if I could bring you along, and that's when we both brought our Xboxes, and we decided to play Halo 2 on Legendary.
Can't forget the case of iced tea.
Yeah.
Thai tea.
Yes, the case of Thai tea that we flew through. And we did this over, December, Christmas break. This was probably right after Christmas, or maybe it was probably before Christmas Eve, and it spilled into, I don't know, probably December 27th.
Yeah, definitely.
Something like that. And I just remember we were so angry with each other. And we really weren't angry with each other. We were angry with the game, and we didn't have an outlet for it. Not a healthy one, for sure, right? But that was an experience that we both shared. And
only the strongest will survive.
Yeah, and we survived. Our friendship survived, that's for sure.
That's an achievement I never thought we would get.
Yeah.
Halo 2 on Legendary. That game is legendary in the community for being the hardest one to beat.
And also, not really a Christmas game, but a Christmas memory. Christmas core memory.
Are you sure you're ready to feel the trauma? Are you ready to relive it?
No.
Sniper Jackals.
Yes, but we found a way around those.
Well, yeah, we did. That's how we beat the game.
Yeah. But there are a few games that take place on Christmas. Games that hopefully you will play at some point. One I hope you will enjoy, one that you just acquired, Batman Arkham Origins, is a great Christmas game because it takes place on Christmas Eve. And
yeah, it's not just the snowy atmosphere, it's also the atmosphere of the game itself.
Yeah. I think one of the famous Christmas songs is worked into the score very faintly. I forget what it is, but it is a great game. It is often seen as one of the black sheeps of the Batman Arkham franchise, but I will take this game over Arkham Knight any day, and I think that's because there is no Batmobile in the game, and yeah, there is quite a bit more gliding and grappling in this game, for sure. It is a little more spread thin, but in my opinion, not nearly as spread thin as Arkham Knight, even though Arkham Knight is much more grand and vibrant and bigger in its scope. But it's a game I hope you will enjoy. But another game that takes place on Christmas is Spider-Man Miles Morales, and you've been getting back into comic books, and hopefully this one is on your list to complete one day. But I don't think this game takes place all on Christmas night. I think
just the intro definitely does.
Maybe not during Christmas Eve.
It's in the season.
It is in the season.
Decorated.
It is absolutely in the season, because I don't know, there's a whole scene where you're decorating the tree and setting up Christmas music and eating Christmas dinner, but...
So I remember the fight with Peter.
Right.
And then Miles goes home and there's decorations. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, it takes place in snowy New York. So...
It doesn't get much more Christmassy than that.
Yeah, and also, there's Christmas decorations everywhere. The game, it takes place probably within the same month, for sure. There's really not, for us, a whole lot of games that take place on Christmas. It's more just Christmas memories. So Nate, are there any more Christmas memories that you have about video games? Maybe something you opened up, or maybe just something that you played over Christmas break?
I remember when I first started getting into first-person shooters full swing that weren't Halo. And one of the first ones that I really delved into was the first Black Ops. Definitely not a Christmas game. But considering the season it was, and me playing through the campaign, because I have no internet, so I just did everything I could to make the offline enjoyable. There was a lot of snowy missions in that game. Like ones where you're undercover in Russia, and with it being snowy outside, it helped my 10-year-old brain imagine that it was real, kind of living in the game.
Right.
It just, when the vibe outside matches the vibe in your virtual world, it's just a special feeling.
That kind of feeling when you don't have any homework, or maybe school's called out because of a snow day or something, and the snow starts to fall, and you have no plans, and you're just stuck inside, and your mom just says, do whatever you want, something like that, when you're a kid.
I'm a CIA operative today.
Ah, yes, absolutely. But one game that invokes a bit of a Christmas feeling with me is a game that everybody's talked about. It's a game everybody has played. If you haven't played it, you absolutely should. It's Skyrim. Skyrim is...
the game, the myth, the legend.
Yes. It is very loosely based on Norse-ish. I wouldn't say mythology, but maybe art style?
Yeah.
Wise?
A Norse...
Aesthetic?
A Norse aesthetic. Definitely some Celtic influence.
Right. There are some areas of the game that look springy, but I think what stands out the most in this game is a lot of the areas are more fall and wintry, and especially when you're in places like Winterhold, like literally Winterhold, or there's Dawnstar, right?
It really sells you on that Northland. These are the hardy people that live in the cold.
Right. And also what sells that is this is a game where, yeah, you can ride a horse, yeah, you can fast travel, but the best stuff happens when you're running from location to location. And when you're making a long trek, especially in an area where the biome changes from fall to winter, or from maybe you're still in winter, but from night to dawn, or from dawn to night, you feel as if you're there. And maybe you'll stumble upon like a cave or a side quest on the way there, and it's just a new adventure every time you boot up that game.
Yeah, and there's tons of different stuff you can do, endings you can explore. And I won't lie, when we read Beowulf in English class in school, Skyrim helped me imagine what that story would be like in my head. It helped give my brain the imagination it needed to make like Macbeth and Beowulf more enjoyable stories.
Right.
Because you're just exposed to that fantasy genre.
Right. Skyrim for me wasn't a game I ever got for Christmas. My first experience with it was I was looking for a game where you could play as a werewolf, and I had just gotten a laptop, and that's when I discovered that piracy was a thing.
Oh, yes.
And that is how I discovered Skyrim for the first time. Since then, I can proudly say I've bought it on every platform since, even though it has had 15,000 releases.
You repented for thy sins.
Yes, I repented for thy sins. And I love this game. It is probably within my top 3 favorite games of all time, and I think it holds the test of time. However, there is a game that I did open on Christmas of 2015, I believe, and that game was Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Nate, have you played this game?
I've dabbled.
You've dabbled.
I've dabbled.
So you haven't spent a significant amount of time within this game, but with the time you have spent, what is your opinion?
It's an enjoyable experience. This is the latter half of Assassin's Creed's original run, where they knew they had to expand and explore different options of gameplay, so that way the game didn't get stale. And it's so obvious they ripped off of the Batman games.
Yes, down to the grapple launcher and the fast-paced combat.
The kind of traversal that they had in that game is fun, but the amount of disbelief you had to have for a grappling hook in 1800s London,
Yeah.
and how well it worked, it just...
For me, it worked well because of the steampunk aesthetic. I'm like, you know what, steampunk, there's a bunch of impossible steampunk ideas that we never have seen, but that's the age of where technology is shifting for everything, for sure. Especially in a world, you know, with magic artifacts such as the Apple of Eden.
I'm not saying in a world where the Apple of Eden exists and the Sword of Eden exists that I can't suspend my disbelief for a grappling hook.
Right.
But as a history nerd who loves the previous Assassin's Creed games, this marked the start for me where they cared less about historical accuracy and more about gameplay.
At least until Shadows comes out, right?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
But I will say, though, and perhaps you will spend more time with this now that it has a next-gen update, you can actually talk with Charles Dickens in this game. And I think that is something, even though you're talking about them not necessarily relying on the historical aspect as much, there's still plenty of characters like Charles Dickens and Charles Darwin that you can meet and talk with and help them on their adventures and writing novels and exploring theories and whatnot. But also, you know, just London in general, it's just, you know, it's kind of like Harry Potter. You know, everybody, a lot of people, your wife, I would assume, likes to associate Harry Potter with Christmas, right? Not just the first one. Yeah, but all of them.
And it definitely factors into that classic British aesthetic. Gothic cities like Edinburgh and London that give you that Christmas image.
Right.
The kind of villages that people make with like those, the ceramic houses and stuff.
Right.
There's like 2 flavors of that. The classic Americana town from the 50s and then the Gothic style from Britain.
Yes.
And Syndicate plays into that very well.
I would say AC3 probably succeeds a little bit more with the Christmassy vibe just based on like snow stuff and hunting and whatnot. But Syndicate, I don't know. I always have a special place in my heart for, you know, opening that game on Christmas, even though for me that was the last true Assassin's Creed game, at least in terms of gameplay. But that is not what we're talking about. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you for listening to the Console Chronicles. Nate, thanks for joining me.
Of course, glad to be here.
And we hope you will join us for our next episode. Perhaps we'll talk about, I don't know, New Year's games or something like that.
Can't wait to play Cyberpunk.
Oh yes, Cyberpunk. We'll see you guys later.